This is class 4 of the series on mindfulness, mindful living, and it's our last formal class in the retreat. And I'm sure that I've been proven right that as you have moved from the intensity of the middle part of the retreat, now you're moving towards going home and thinking about going home, and hopefully thinking about what you're going to take home. So we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight. With a retreat like this, you just get a whole big download, don't you? Like just massive amounts of information and, tips and all of that. But don't worry, you've got a whole year to integrate it. And that's right. I mean, we are fortunate enough to have a lot of teachings, a lot of different access to a lot of different teachings, and then we have our quiver. Then we take it home and have our quiver. It's an old surfing term, actually. When you get more and more into surfing, you have to buy like more and more boards. Because you have, like different boards for different occasions or moods, as the case may be, and you call them your quiver, and you decide, well, what shall I take from the quiv today? And so now you have a quiver, and you can decide which of the many, many practices and teachings that you've got will be suitable for you today, on this day, and that's good. So then you'll have your choice, and you'll be your own therapist, your own teacher, and decide what is best for you on that day. The first class in this series was really about lifestyle changes, and I hope that you've taken the opportunity in the retreat to think about lifestyle changes. You got a chance to get off the daily grind for a little while. For these 6 days, and then to maybe have a chance to reflect on, like, what do I need to adjust when I go back into my life, and this is a great opportunity to just make a few simple changes. Doesn't have to be radical. Probably won't be radical. If it's radical, it probably won't last. But simple. Easy to do kinds of adjustments in your daily life that would make actually a big difference in the long run. So think about what that is. Maybe get more sleep. Maybe promise to get more sleep. That'd be a good one for a lot of people. To just relax more, to take more time off, to unplug more, to not eat so much all the time. That was one of them. Remember, to not learn how to be alone more, alone and quiet, to carve out some time in your day, every day, where everything's shut off and you're not talking to anyone and you're just alone. And you'll like it. If you start it, you'll like it. And then maybe you'll want to be alone more even. And then maybe you want to take a whole day off once a week on Saturday or Sunday or something and just close it all up. And just be alone and quiet and read and rest and do some yoga and meditate and chillax. Life is short, Nobody's going to go to their grave going, I wish I would have worked more. Oh, I have such regret. I wish I would have put in longer hours at my dead-end job. It's not like that. Spend more time with your family. Spend more time with your friends, with your kids. Enjoy your relationships instead of, having them all like squeezed and compacted and, just grabbing a few minutes here and there to interact with the people that you love and that love you. So, that was the first class, how to make those kinds of simple adjustments in your daily life. I always recommend, it's in my book also, that you spend more time in bed in the morning before getting up. Just, rolling around in the bed, relaxing, stretching, and thinking a little bit about two things. One is what an awesome life I'm leading, which is actually the case. We're all leading extraordinary, blessed lives, and we don't take the time to appreciate that, to notice it, just to notice it. So instead of having the morning zoo or an alarm clock be the first thing that you think about in the morning, think about that as you're kind of waking up slowly, getting ready for your day. Just think and if you can't think of anything else to be grateful for, you can always say, well, at least I woke up this morning. One morning you won't wake up. I've got another day. And then that's the other thing to think about on a pretty much daily basis. Before too much goes on in the course of the day, think about the fact that you're not going to have forever to live in this precious life. That death is certain, and the time of death is uncertain. And so don't waste life. And that's a very, very good thing to be thinking about on a daily basis. It's not morbid or depressing or anything like that. It's just the case. And then you will really appreciate life a lot more. Smell the roses and all of that. How many fights are you going to get into if you really are cognizant of the fact that this could be your last day? How many arguments are really worth it if this was your last day? And so a very, very good way to live, actually. So those kinds of lifestyle adjustments, changes, and please do think about it. Otherwise, just another long weekend, done, finished, and then not much effect, really. If you don't take it home, you see, if you don't integrate it in some way into your daily life, and I mean daily, so it has to be doable, it has to be realizable. So don't be over ambitious, but make reachable goals. And then do it, train yourself to do it. Just carve out 15 minutes, if nothing else, okay, I'm going to do 15 minutes of meditation. I'll do 15 minutes of thinking about how awesome my life is and how it's not going to last forever. Or, whatever it is that you'd like to integrate from what you've taken home from this retreat, but do it on a daily basis. And then here's another sort of tip, okay? Take a day off once a week, and just rest, including taking a day off from your spiritual life. Your spiritual life should be your life. But if you're still thinking about your life as well, I've got my life, and then I got to try and do this meditation thing and this study of sacred text thing and all of that as something separate from your life, well, take a day off and just rest and restore yourself, and so that you're revitalized for the next week. And that's the way to keep going, actually. So another sort of phenomenon that occurs a lot in retreats like this is that people get really, really fired up and inspired and all like that, and then they don't rest, and they overdo it, and they overschedule their spiritual life, and then in 3 months or so it's over. They just burn themselves out, and it's so protect your practice. Protect your practice from that possibility of burnout by resting when you need to rest. And it's important to rest. So then the second class, we talked about mindfulness as a kind of a meditational practice, as a kind of a practice of being aware of yourself, right? Of being aware of your body, being aware of your feelings, of your state of mind, and of your thoughts, and be aware of the obstacles that come up to mindfulness, and then exercise the antidotes. So that's it's a very important practice to be self-aware. To be self-aware. To know thyself, as Socrates said, right? Or was it somebody else? A bunch of people said that. And they keep saying it over and over again. And they probably wouldn't say it so much if it were easy to do. It's not that easy to understand who you are at all. And if you don't believe me, try it. Try and know yourself. Try and be conscious of yourself and who you are. And one of the, there's different levels of value to that. One level is to just know what you've got to work on, to be aware of yourself so that you know, oh, this is the kind of thing that brings up anger in me. This is the kind of feeling I get when somebody says X, Y, or Z, or this is the kind of thoughts I have on a kind of an ongoing basis. And sometimes that can be a little that can be a little disillusioning, because we have maybe an over important idea of ourselves, an exaggerated idea of how awesome we are, until we actually start watching and looking and saying, whoa, this isn't so awesome. And that feeling wasn't so awesome at all. And that thought sucked. And and just recognize that. That's an important thing. That's an important part of self-awareness. Because otherwise, you just sort of go through life, self-deluded a little bit. And sort of just trusting that, well, I know I feel like a good person. I know that I want to be a good person, and I probably am a good person. And other people should know that too, even though I'm yelling at them. We just have this sort of inflated idea of our own goodness until we start watching it and saying, well, no, there's plenty to work on here. There's plenty to do when it comes to self-improvement. And then at a deeper level, when it comes to this mindfulness practice, in meditation and otherwise, is to start getting a sneaking suspicion that you're not who you think you are at all. That the self that we think we have is an illusion. And that's a really important recognition. And you see that by watching the flow of the self. The self is a process, not a thing. The self is a label on a process. It's a label on a process, like the Parker River. Is that the river here? Parker? It's like the Parker River. Is the river a thing or a process? Is it a thing? Is there a thing called the Parker River, or is it just flow? Constantly changing flow. And that's you. That's you say your name to yourself. And then we say our name to ourselves, we label ourselves, and we think that somehow makes it a thing instead of just a process. Just like we do with a river, for example. We say Parker River and we think that there's a real thing there instead of just flow. And so this is a really important thing to sort of starting to wake up to, is the flow that is you, constantly changing flow. And that flow includes your sense of self in terms of the label also, you see. Our labels change. Our names maybe don't change, but what we mean by that name changes, right? That's self-conception. And self-conception changes over time. And that's the only self there is a conception of the self. So to know that, then we start to kind of get interested, maybe, hopefully, in how to improve our self-conception. If that's the only self that there is, if the only self there really is an idea of the self, well, how can I change that idea for the better? See, how can I have a more positive self-conception? And then you start working on your moral life, and which is the main prerequisite for actually living mindfully, actually living and accepting life as it is that you improve your self-conception enough so you're willing to be in the here and now, instead of like spacing out or dreaming or thinking, well, maybe later I'll feel better, or maybe later my life will improve, and all of that, you see. So self-conception is a product of what we call karma. It is karma, you could say. You is your karma. You don't have karma. There's no self that has karma. There's no self that has a body or a mind even. So there's no self apart from life, ongoing, changing all the time. So what we call karma is our self-conception, actually, based on who we think we once were, right? Who we once were is out of our knowledge. Can't know it, right? Because it's gone. What we did, what we said, what we thought in the past is gone. But we carry it around in our memory, right? We carry around memories of who we think we once were. And that is you. Who would you be without memory? See, it's like just as a thought experiment. If your memory was completely wiped out, and I'm talking about all memories here, conscious memory as well as subconscious memory, and unconscious memory. Who would you be if you had no memories? You see, you'd be nothing and no one, wouldn't you? So we are, as somebody, as individuals, a product of our memory. We are our memories. So if you want to improve yourself, create better memories for yourself. How will you do that? By watching your P's and Q's on an ongoing basis. Right? Everything we do now is creating memories for our later, for our tomorrow. And that's how you improve yourself, and that's the only self there is to improve, is a concept of the self. So watching yourself, mindfully watching yourself is also in the service of determining on an ongoing basis, what kind of memories do I want to create today? What kind of new memories do I implant, right? What kind of new imprints do I want to make today? Because that's who I'll be later. That's who I'll be later, right? Later, you will be who you think you were then, which is now, right? And that's karma. I mean, I'll talk more about it at the UU church on Monday, but that's really just, karma's just memory. You can call it by Sanskrit terms and all like that, but that's just what it means. It means that we have memories, and we are defined by our memories. So what we do matters, because it creates an ongoing, changing sort of sense of self. And that's who we are. That's who we are as somebody. And then at a deeper level, when you go into the deeper levels of meditation, on mindfulness meditation, and start realizing that the somebody self is just a kind of an illusion in a way. It's like a dream. It's like a phantom. It keeps changing, right? It keeps coming and going and changing and all like that. Then you get in touch with your nobody self. We all want to be somebody, we're all grasping onto somebody, but we really all deep down are nobody. We are the great nobody. We are all part of the same great nobody. Or you can call it the great same everybody. It's the emptiness or the plenitude. Either way, however you want to look at it, it's the same thing. It's the oneness. It's the whole, W-H-O-L-E. And we are that. We are ultimately that. So the grasping onto the mindfulness of the self, the mindfulness of the body, of the feelings, of the mindset, the state of mind, and of the thoughts, it can also lead us into a very deep rabbit hole, into understanding who we really are. Because it's all just impermanent. It's all just floating and floating by. And so there's a deeper reality that isn't floating by, that has never been born and will never die. And that is where we have come from, and that is where we'll go. And to realize that before death would be a good idea. You see, that would be a good idea, to realize like who we really are. So then last night we started talking about guarding awareness, guarding your mindfulness, guarding your self-awareness. And I didn't mention, I did the whole class without mentioning that this chapter, chapter 5 from the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, is in the context of guarding a particular kind of awareness, actually. It comes after the first 4 chapters, as chapter 5 often does. The first 4 chapters are developing what they call bodhicitta, generating what they call bodhicitta. Bodhi means awakening. Chitta means the mindset of awakening, the state of mind of awakening. And that's literally what it means. It means having a different kind of how to put it? It's like changing the arena in which stuff happens in your mind. It's like changing the vessel in which all the stuff that's going on in the mind, feelings, thoughts, memories, discrimination, all of that occurs. It's the context, changing the context of your mind. And what that, so that's the chitta part. The chitta part is the context for any particular thought, for any particular feeling. See, it's the mindset, frame of mind. If anyone has a better term for that, please let me know. I'm working on it. Frame of mind's not bad. State of mind, something like that. And bodhi is the word for awakening in Sanskrit. So it's the state of mind that's beginning to awaken. Let's put it that way, okay? It's beginning to awaken. It's awakening. And it's awakening to reality. What else would it awaken to? Not to another dream. See, we're awakening from a dream, not into a dream. And so as we're awakening into how things really are, we need to guard that, because that can be lost. Bodhicitta can be lost, right? It's not like a cessation for the Buddha heads. Cessations can't be lost. Once they stop, they're stopped. But bodhicitta is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. And so positive things can change. And so we have to protect it. So we protect our ability to be present here and now in reality and understand reality as it is. And one of the things that you're awakening to in reality, because it is reality, is the fact that things are interdependent and not independent. Things exist interdependently and not independently, and that very much includes you. Includes each and every one of us. No man or woman is an island. And although it seems that way though, doesn't it? It seems that we're all so alone in here, you know? Or in there, right? Nobody really knows me. Nobody really understands me. Nobody hears my thoughts, thankfully. This is one way to improve your thoughts, just as a practice, is to imagine that they're being broadcast. Big loudspeakers coming out of here, you know? And then you maybe get some control over them a little bit. But you know, there's that feeling, right? There's that feeling that we're just alone and isolated and alone and individuals. That's the snowflake self, you see? That's the grasping to the snowflake self. You are all individuals, and it's driving you all crazy. Yeah, and we do our best to avoid being individuals, actually, sometimes. When we're not striving to be individuals and grasping to our individuality and, you know, and getting all into our snowflakeness, we've got this other impulse too, and that is to belong to something bigger. So that's why we seek our partners. That's why we have pets. You know, so we have connection. That's why we join clubs. That's why we join religions, is so that we'll feel like we're more than just ourselves. We're more than just the individual. That's the whole nationalism business. You know, it's behind all these kinds of group identities, is this desire to belong. This desire not to feel isolated and alienated and individual. So we've got it both going on, two separate different poles inside of ourselves. And they are at war with each other. So in a way you could say that, you know, there are lots of bad ways to identify with groups. There's lots of not so useful ways because any partial identification with the group implies that you're not some other group. See, if you're an American, it means you're not an Australian. If you're black, it means you're not white. If you're a member of this family, it means you're not a member of that other families. If you're a Buddhist, it can also mean, and I'm not a Christian, or a Hindu, or a Jew, you see. So these group identities can be very tricky. They can be as detrimental as grasping onto the individual. They can have a rebound effect of being very, very detrimental. So the real group that we belong to is the group of living beings. And that's, bodhicitta is beginning to awaken to that. Is beginning to awaken to the fact that that's the group we really belong to. And that's the way to end in the isolation that is inherent in grasping to the individual self, the lower self, the snowflake self, as well as the conflict that arises when we grasp to a partial group self, if you see what I mean. A group self that isn't all-inclusive. A group self that is, by definition, exclusive. And there's lots and lots of versions of that. Lots of them. So we begin to awaken to that, and then we try to guard it. So that's actually the context of where this 5th chapter is coming from. The context of that 5th chapter is to guard a particular kind of mindset and be mindful to not lose it, to not lose that sense of belonging to the largest whole, okay? To the largest whole, to the whole, to the capital T, capital W whole, and to protect that. Because it's easy to slip back all the time. Even if you get a glimpse of it, if you just get a glimpse of it, you start to get a sort of a feeling of it, maybe an ecstatic dance, or maybe music is kind of magical, isn't it? It transports us. It transports us somewhere else. And where is that? Where do you go, you see? Who are you when you cease to be somebody? When you let the self-consciousness go, when that little voice shuts up, when you live instead of just thinking about live or mediating life or talking about it inside, you see, what's left when you're not somebody? And there you got it. Then you get a little taste of the cosmic nobody self, which is everything, the cosmic nothing, which is everything. You get a little taste of your Buddhahood, if you want to be a Buddhist. You get a little taste of God, of being part of the whole. And so, and we love that. It's fun. It's fun not to be you, isn't it? Yes. It's a big relief. This is why it's a good night's sleep. When you had a good night's sleep, you weren't you for a while. Sometimes when we're dreaming, it's like we're sort of still partially me. It's kind of a funky me, but it's still me. But in deep sleep, we get relief. We get the relief from having to be somebody, having to be an individual. So we long for it. We long for that state. And when we have conscious versions of it, more or less conscious versions, when you lose yourself in ecstasy, when you lose yourself in the bliss, that's why it's bliss. That's why it's ecstasy. Is because you're not sitting there going, I am in bliss. I am sure having a good time here at the kirtan. See? Oh, wow, Krishna's awesome. Oh, Krishna. I think Krishna's pretty good. There's no thought. There's no thought. Just is. Just is. Being. Just pure being. Getting in touch with your pure being. So if you get a sense of that, then as we go through the day, then we have to try to guard what we can remember of that. Guard what we can remember of the truth, of the reality of things. And that's very difficult. It's very difficult. We get sucked back in very easily. As soon as the kirtan's over, it's all like me, what about me again? You see, right? As soon as we come down from the ecstasy, then there's dishes to do. Isn't that Cornfield's book, Jack Cornfield? After the ecstasy, huh? So the laundry. After the ecstasy, the laundry, right? Is it the laundry? And is it the ecstasy? Yeah. Well, I want to get his title right. So he can't be in ecstasy all the time. And that's just realistic, okay? I mean, maybe someday there's a state where we'll be in ecstasy all the time. Probably not in this life. If you were in ecstasy all the time in this life, you would probably get committed. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. If you were nobody all the time, you would probably be nobody behind bars somewhere, in a straitjacket. So we go up, but then we must come down. And then the question is, how far down are you going to come? You see? Are you going to have like what Cindy was talking about, the Tuesday? So you had a really long weekends, didn't you? Like it went from Friday right through Monday, yeah? So then the Tuesday hangover of like, the big come down from the rave. And there's spiritual versions of this too, of course, You get a big hit now for 6 days, and then, well, where are you going to end up tomorrow? Tomorrow night, Monday, see? So we have to be realistic about that. We have to be, we have to be prepared for the fact that it isn't all just going to be ecstasy all the time. And to be happy with that too. To be satisfied and content with the non-ecstasy, with the non-bliss, with just life, when it's non-blissful. It's nice to have blissful life. It's nice to have those kinds of experiences. But it's unrealistic to think that that's going to be the whole enchilada, unbroken ecstasy. If it were unbroken ecstasy also, it actually wouldn't be ecstasy, right? You get bored with it. I'm bored with my ecstasy. No, because there's nothing to contrast it with, you see? There has to be agony for there to be ecstasy, you see? There has to be pain for there to be pleasure. These are in mutually interdependent. Everything exists interdependently. Nothing exists independently. And so where do you end up after the ecstasy? Where do you come down? And can that place be a place of contentment? Of contentment with non-ecstasy, of contentment with the somebody self, as well as the ecstasy of the nobody self. And that's the goal, really, I think. That's another way of talking about the goal. Of realizing, of having a strong sense of communion with the nobody self, which is everybody. The plenitude, which is the emptiness. To have a strong familiarity with that. But to recognize it isn't that way all the time. There's no ultimate reality without deceptive reality, as they say in Buddhism. There's no ultimate reality of emptiness without the deceptive reality of form, of regular life, you see. And can we be content with both? That's the goal. Can we know both of them well enough to be content with both? Can we understand them well enough to be content with both? Instead of having illusions and fantasies and so forth that are constantly getting popped, those bubbles constantly getting popped. So that's a kind of a long prelude to what I'm supposed to do tonight. So let's turn again to class 4, now to class 4, and again to the 5th chapter of the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life by Shantideva. Guarding Full Awareness, that chapter is called. And we'll pick it up with verse 70. I've labeled this class, again, fairly, kind of artificially, mindfulness in action. He does talk about mindfulness in action in the verses that we'll cover, but he also talks about mindfulness in thought here too. So in both, mindfulness in thought, mindfulness in action. The mind has been deposited into the vessel which is the body, something that makes it possible to move around. Thank you. I've got a body. I can, walk around and move around. Make the body go where you wish in order to fulfill the needs of living beings. So right off, that's kind of why I wanted to set up the bodhicitta thing a little bit, because here he's saying, well, what direction? I'm mindful of my physicality. I'm mindful of my mentality, but in what direction should I lead it? You see, it's important to be mindful of what's happening, physically, mentally. But then also, well, what do I do with it? Those are the cards, right? The mindfulness is awareness of the cards, of the cards you've been dealt. the hand that you've been dealt. But then how am I going to play this hand? What's the point of having a body? You see? Okay, I'm aware of my body. I'm aware of the fact that I'm embodied. What's the purpose of my body? What's the purpose of having an embodied life? And what does he say here? Make the body go where you wish in order to fulfill the needs of living beings, of others, of being a servant. You see, my body should be a servant to both me and to others. It should be my servant. I should be in charge of it, you see, not just be the victim of it over and over again, not just be at its mercy and its wants and needs and all of that, physical needs. So we should take charge of our bodies, of our physicality. And then he says, and put the body into the service of others. And the reason that he says that, for those of you who are unclear on it, is that's the way to be happy. Want to be happy? Then serve others. Stop thinking about yourself. You see, we already kind of like touched on it. It's a big, big clue that it's when we are not there that we're happiest. When we're in the ecstasy, when we're in the middle of the kirtan, dancing around, waving our hands. You see, when we're happiest is when we're not self-conscious. We're not there. And so that's why serving others, physically and mentally, is the reason for happiness, because we can stop thinking about ourselves. See, there's not always going to be kirtan. You can't sit there with your iPhone on, your iPod, 24/7, dancing around in Brooklyn or wherever you are. Some people are trying that, I think, in Brooklyn, but if you wear those ear things too long, they start hurting, right? 2-3 hours max. Anyway, you can't just be in ecstasy all the time like that. But you always are with someone else, at least mentally. You see? We are also defined in terms of our relationships. We are our relationships. It's not that we're in relationships. We are the relationships. We're defined by the others, all the others, in our lives. And so you're never alone in a way, because there's always somebody else, against whom you're defining yourself, with whom you're defining yourself, whether it's in person or just in your own head. So they're always there. And so we can lose ourselves in their service. You see, when the kirtan ends, when the ecstasy and when the rave ends on Tuesday, there they are. They're there. The others are there. You see, the others are still there. So that's one way to land. One way to land from your own personal high is to land in relationship, in interconnection, in interdependence. What Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing. There's no being, there's interbeing. There's no you being apart from interbeing with others, you see. All kinds of examples of this. I am because you are, and vice versa. I am because you are. This is in contrast to the sort of usual Western idea from Descartes. I think, therefore I am. That's all very solipsistic. I think, therefore I am. Just all about me in here, you see. And this way of talking about it, which I think is an African phrase, actually, I am because you are, is much more accurate to the realities of things. See, we exist interdependently, not independently. Nothing exists independently. Everything exists interdependently, and things are empty of existing in any other way than that. And that's Buddhist philosophy in 10 words or something, 15 words. And that's it. That's the whole deal. So the others are always there. So how can I be happy? You see, ecstasy is happy, isn't it? When you're dancing around, lost yourself, or when you've lost yourself in a movie, You see, that's another indication. That's what makes a good movie, is that you're not there watching it. You're not there criticizing it and, analyzing the plot and all like that. You're absorbed, right? You're absorbed, and then 2 hours go by and it's like, wow, where'd the time go? See, good book, same thing. That's what makes a good book. If you were reading a book word by word, like in your head, it would not be a good book, right? No, it's the fact that we can just flow into the book, into the narrative, right? Not think about word by word, sentence by sentence. We lose ourselves. We become nobody. We get in touch with our nobody selves and get lost in something other than ourselves, you see? Get lost in something other than ourselves. So the religious traditions, the spiritual traditions say, why not get lost in others? They're always there. See, good books are hard to find. A really absorbing movie comes once in a while. The ecstasy of kirtan doesn't happen all that often. But other people are always around, either physically or in your head. How can I lose myself in them? So make the body go where you wish in order to fulfill the needs of living beings. Sattva artha. Artha means the purpose, the end, the interest of sattva, all living life, all living beings. So we could start with human beings, We could start by losing ourselves in the service of the human beings in our lives. And they're there, there they are. Your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mother, your father, your son, your daughter, your friends, the people at work. How can I serve here? See, what can I do? What can I do? And here it's talking about physically. What can I do with my body that would make my body a servant of others? So someone who has in this way conquered himself or herself should always have a smile on his face. So immediately it goes from make the body go where you wish in order to fulfill the needs of living beings into happy. Next verse. If you've really done this, if you've really conquered your own selfishness, you're grasping to your own self-consciousness. If you've really done this, then you will have smita mukha. Your mukha will be smita. Mukha means face. Smita means smile. And be outgoing. You see, not inward. You see, not inward like, what about me, what about me, what about me? Outgoing, a friend to the world, jagat suhrt. Suhrt's a beautiful word for friend in Sanskrit. It means good-hearted. Good-hearted, sharing a good heart with another person. Here he's saying, with the whole jagat, with the whole world, be a friend to the world. He should give up frowning. Burkuti, contracting the brows, literally. And being such a sourpuss. Samkocha means wrinkle face. One should not, so then he goes into what else should you do with your body? Mindful living in your physicality. Someone who is in this, so one should not noisily and forcibly move chairs and other furniture around or beat on the door. Stop making a racket all the time with your body, disturbing other people basically, right? That's why, just disturbing other people. But rather be a lover of silence. Ni shabda. Shabda means sound. Ni means no sound. The prefix, ni shabda, ruchi, somebody who really likes ni shabda, no sound. The crane, the cat, and the thief move silently and furtively, obtain what they wish for. Moving silently and furtively, obtain what they wish for. The seeker should always conduct himself similarly, like a cat. Ever watch a cat stalk a mouse? Now there's one-pointedness. There's full attention, right? And and very deliberate movements, right? Very careful until finally it's time to act. And boom, just boom, just this, like a sudden burst. And he's comparing that, and thief too. Like he's talking, no, he's talking about like a cat burglar, you know, who's very, very quiet getting into the house in order to steal your jewelry. Very quiet, very deliberate, see. So a seeker should always conduct himself similarly, moving your body very deliberately, very carefully, very purposefully. Deferentially, one should accept unsolicited but beneficial words of reproach from others and always be the student of everyone. This is a verse I pick out oftentimes for our teachings because it's so hard to do. Deferentially, one should accept unsolicited as they will be. No one's going around going, could you please reproach me? You know, kind of bored today, I need some reproach. One should accept unsolicited but beneficial words. So when someone, so now he's moving into mindfulness of thought here, kind of back and forth, right? When somebody criticizes you, when somebody said you did that wrong, he's saying, well, think, is there anything to that? Is there something I can learn from this criticism? Rather than immediately, you know, just knee-jerk defensiveness and say, no, I didn't, you did. You know, that's our usual 4-year-old, you know, emotional response. When we're criticized, we immediately criticize back in order to avoid the criticism, you see? It's like we're hoping this will be some kind of like really amazing jujitsu. You know, wow, do you see that? They criticized me, but I just turned it right back on them and criticized. I may be Bruce Lee or something. You know. Unsolicited but beneficial words of reproach, and always be the student of everyone. Very beautiful phrase. Sarva Shisha, be the student of everyone. Sometimes we get sort of good at being students of our teachers, sorta. But teachings are available 24/7, all the time, thanks to other people, thanks to life and to other people. And so, you know, you get these classes over these 6 days. You get your yoga classes, your meditation classes, and your Lindsay Krause classes, and your Cindy Lee classes, and my classes, and you know, all these classes. And then you go home and go, well, where's my classes? All of a sudden I have no classes. And well, your husband's your teacher. Your wife's your teacher. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your children. The irritating people at work are really your teachers. See? The guide, as many of you know, says it quite dramatically. Your only teacher of patience is an annoying person. Is patience a good thing or a bad thing? Quick. Yeah, I don't think anyone would say, yes, I'd like to be more impatient. Right? Everyone knows. How can you be patient unless there's someone annoying you? You don't get any points for being patient with unannoying people. It's not even patience, right? So when an annoying, irritating person starts annoying and being irritating and allows you then to practice the virtue of patience, oh, thank you, irritating persons. My greatest teacher of irritation. The same, by the way, is true of people who have hurt you. People who have really hurt you, that you're holding grudges about, you know, anger towards. They are the only possibility for cultivating another virtue, forgiveness. See, if they hadn't hurt you, there would be nothing to forgive. You see? Is forgiveness a virtue or a vice? What do you think? Quick. How many people want to forgive the person that really hurt them? No, raise your hand, because everyone would have to. We don't really want to at all, do we? Is it just me? No, isn't forgiveness like really hard? The more they hurt you, the harder it is? right? The more, right? So like again, the self is at total war with each other, with itself. Because on the one hand, we know that we should forgive. This is, you didn't hear this for the first time on August 17th here in Byfield, Massachusetts. That it would be a good idea to forgive, that forgiveness is a virtue. But then we said, no, not gonna. You're not gonna. So we can't be happy and hold a grudge at the same time. We can't live a contented life. We can't live a happy life holding on to these coals that are burning us. It's just bitterness, just anger and bitterness. Retrospective bitterness. Retrospective, because it's done, right? It's over. Whatever that was, it's over. It's just you holding on to it. It's just you. It's just in your own mind. It's again, how you're defining yourself, right? We are who we think we once were. So if you think that you were once a victim, that you were once just a victim of someone else's, nastiness, then that's who you are now. So if you want to change, there's one really easy way to do it, relatively easy. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to practice 15 minutes a day doing anything. You just sit down and you forgive them. You just let it go. And that's probably not going to happen just in one time, one sitting. Okay, I forgive you. But that's the only way to do it, is just convince yourself that you actually have forgiven them over and over and over again. So, and one way to help you do that is to remember interdependence, that you couldn't practice this beautiful virtue, you see. Part of its beauty is because it's so hard, It's kind of relatively easy to be generous or, other kinds of virtues, but forgiveness is difficult. I said it just a few minutes ago, it's relatively easy because it's just about you and your mind, but it's really, really hard to do. And so you get extra points for doing it. And the points that you get for doing it is happiness, your own sense of happy self. And one way to help you do it, which is, help us all do it, is to remember that you couldn't be doing it unless they had hurt you. Thank you. Thank you for hurting me. There's what's that Irish girl's name with the shaved head? Sinead O'Connor. You know that song? Thank you for loving me. Thank you for... Such a beautiful song. If you don't know that song, you should check it out. And then she goes into it. Thank you for hurting me. Thank you for leaving me. Thank you for stomping on my heart, or something. And that's amazing. That's an amazing song, amazing sentiment. And that's the kind of sentiment that we can have towards the people that hurt us in the past if we're really going to forgive them. The ultimate form of forgiveness involves gratitude. See, not just letting it go, but being thankful that it happened. And one way to be thankful is to realize that you couldn't have exercised forgiveness without it. And forgiveness is a virtue. You just got a virtue. You just got to work on a virtue because somebody else hurt you in the past. Thank you. Deferentially, one should accept unsolicited but beneficial words of reproach from others and always be the student of everyone. Everyone has something to teach you. One should applaud all good conduct, and when he sees others doing good, he should sing their praises. So this is one of the verses that combat a very ugly human tendency, which is envy. Envy of other people's goodness. Or envy of anything, you see. Envy of their material wealth, envy of their car, envy of their job, but then there can be this kind of spiritual envy too. Envy of the fact that they're really good at forgiveness and I'm not, for example, or something like that. And when somebody sees somebody doing something good, instead of being envious and going, well, I probably could do it as well as that, or or I wish I could, and I'm kind of angry that that person is doing it better than me, to just rejoice. Say like, wow, that's awesome. That's awesome that they can do it. Sees others doing good, he should sing their praises. One should speak of others' good quality behind their back. Paroksha. So this is one of the ways that you can actually gossip properly. You can just like behind people's, and again, why does he say this? Why paroksha? Paroksha means like not seen. Why? If you're praising somebody's good qualities to their face, what's likely to be involved there? Yeah, ego, right? Like, look what an awesome person I am for praising you. You see? Don't you think I'm a good person? I'm a person who praises. I'm a person who praises you right to your face. So sneak around behind their backs and praise them. Don't let them know that you're praising them. That's egoless praising, you see, in a way. One should speak of others' good qualities behind their back and happily spread the news. So not like be this sort of close-hearted person who doesn't like to talk about other people's good qualities, because it's not your good qualities. See, that's kind of what it is all about, isn't it? It's their good qualities, so I won't have that much to say about it. Then one should speak of other when his own character is being discussed. So when your good qualities are being talked about to others, you should regard it impersonally as appreciation of good qualities in general. So if someone says, you're really an honest person, you should distantiate. You get some distance from the you that's the honest person and think about honesty. And think like, yeah, honesty is really great. They're praising honesty. They're not praising me, right? They're not praising my whole being. They're praising the fact that, I somehow have managed to cultivate a little bit of honesty. They're praising the honesty. All endeavors are meant to bring us to contentment. You could put this on your, rear view mirror, refrigerator door. All endeavors are meant to bring us to tushti arta. Everything we do is an attempt to be content. I, kind of like ran this by you before, right? Behind every desire is the desire. Behind any particular desire is the desire for the end of desire. That's why we scratch when we have our itches. Anyone else get like bit up out there tonight? Got lots of itches to scratch tonight. Yeah? Every time we scratch the itch, we hope that will be the last scratch, that we won't have the itchiness anymore. And that's a metaphor, All desires are like that. The desire for things, the desire for a new relationship, the desire for a better job, the desire for a trip to the Bahamas is all in the hopes that I won't have desires anymore. If I could fulfill this one, that would be the end. And then we scratch, and then we go to the Bahamas, and we go like, wow, this is awesome here in the Bahamas. This is the first 4 or 5 days. And the water's so blue here in the Bahamas. And like that calypso music, and the food's pretty good and all like that. And then by day 6, it's pretty hot here. Calypso music's still good, but it's hot, and gosh, nobody works much. What are these lazy people around here? It takes forever to get a drink. We start getting discontent again, right? And then by it doesn't really take that long usually. 10 days, if you're 10 days anywhere, you start to get discontent pretty much. It's like, when can I go somewhere else now? You see, over and over and over again. But the hope is that if I got to the Bahamas, I wouldn't want to go anywhere else again. That's behind all of these desires. I finally find the place where I would never have to be dissatisfied again. I'd just be constantly satisfied. We gave a retreat, what was it, 2 years ago, Cindy, in Hawaii with Claire and Darren? And Hawaii. Hawaii's nice, okay? Anyone not been to Hawaii? A lot of people not been. You should go sometime. It's really nice. Then you'd be happy. No, there's a lot of mainlanders who have moved to Hawaii because it's really nice there. And, the temperature's always perfect. It's never too hot, actually, in Hawaii. They got trade winds going all the time, and the water's like the same temperature as your body, basically. And, it's really, really nice there. And then, people come and move from Cleveland or wherever and get to Hawaii, and they like luxuriate in Hawaii for a while, and then, got problems. All of a sudden they like wake up to the fact that they can't just move from Cleveland in order to get rid of their problems and move to Hawaii. If there was a problemless place in the world, everyone would move there. Of course, right? So we called that retreat When There's Trouble in Paradise. In the hopes to attract the Hawaiians, who know this, that even in paradise you got problems. So why was I talking about that? Oh yeah, contentment. All endeavors are just to try to be content. But that is very difficult to obtain, even for the rich and famous. And this kind of throws us off sometimes, doesn't it? Well, if I only had more money, then I'd be content. I do this exercise often. Does money bring you happiness? And no one will ever say, yes, money brings you happiness, because we all know that it doesn't at some level, or we know that shouldn't be the right answer. But then we all think, no, but if I had a little bit more money, then I'd be happy, then I'd be content. And if money really brought happiness, there would be no unhappy rich people. Are there any unhappy rich people? There are lots of unhappy rich people. Not only that, there would be no happy poor people, because money brings happiness. See, are there any unhappy happy poor people? Yeah. See, it can't be in the money. Who was it? David Geffen. David Geffen, the Hollywood guy, producer or something like that. He said, Record. Is he Record? Said, people who think that money bring happiness don't have money. People who have money know that it's not in the money. Happiness is not in the money. But the rest of us think, well, if I had their money, I'd be happy. And money's wasted on those rich people. Those damn 1%ers. Let's crucify them. You see, until you become one. Then I'd be happy if I were one of them. But in the meantime, I'll just despise them and criticize them and protest against them while we're envying them. Money doesn't bring you happiness, and fame doesn't bring you happiness either. And a lot of people, even more people, are unclear on that these days. Because we're living in an age of instant fame, where if we always hope that if I could just upload the right YouTube video, then I could be like Justin Bieber. That's how he got famous, right? His mom made a video of him being awesome on the drums or something like that, when he was what, 8, 10 or something? Is that it, Cindy? And uploaded it to YouTube, and it went viral, and he became a star. And there's lots of examples of that nowadays. There's whole television shows based on this, right? Take some sort of plain-looking lady from Ireland. What was that lady's name? Yeah, and all of a sudden she's a big star. Boom, overnight, boom. And so it's kind of gotten infected. It's infected our own minds, in one way or another. We want to be famous. This is the whole thing behind, thumbs up on Facebook. And friends, how many friends do I have? Even if you don't know them. I've got this many friends, so I must be famous. You see? And thinking that's the way to be happy. That's the way to have your somebody self affirmed. Right? And there's no end to that. There's no end to that. There's not enough thumbs up in the world to satisfy you. You see? You could get like all the billion people on Facebook going, yes, your cat, I like your cat. But then you'd realize, well, yeah, but there's 6 billion people left who aren't on Facebook. What about them? Do they like my cat too? You know, can't tell because they're not on Facebook. You know, never an end to it. There's never enough. Never enough money, never enough fame. If that's what you think is going to make you happy, then it's just a crack addiction. Just never get enough. And so it's very difficult to obtain, even for the rich and famous, even though, you know, people got all kinds of things going for them, they're not content either. And so I will enjoy the greatest contentment in the good qualities achieved through the hard work of others. Very beautiful. So not about contentment on your hard work, but finding your own contentment in living in a world where other people are doing awesome things. You know, you could start with thinking about like people like the Dalai Lama. You know, he does 24/7 is just doing awesome things. Pretty much. Traveling the world, you know, bringing peace to the world, you know, teaching, you know, universal ethics, not fundamentalism, not teaching like everyone's got to be Buddhist or something like that, teaching the methods for living a happy life to all kinds of people in all kinds of ways. How awesome that there's people like that in the world. He's not the only one, but you know, just to start with. And to feel content, you see, instead of discontent about the Japanese, you know, nuclear reactor that's leaking whatever it is into the Pacific Ocean. You see, that's happening too, but that's not going to bring you any contentment. Sort of dwelling on that and feeling completely disempowered and victimized. So think about the things that the awesome things that actually are happening also, you see? It's not like they're not happening. It's not like there isn't, you know, amazing, beautiful things going on. So, you know, this is an example of what I used to call scab picking. And this is a very human tendency. The tendency to gravitate to the negative. Always to the negative. So, you know, you got a whole beautiful, healthy body maybe, and then you get one scab. You know what a scab? You get an owie, and then it scabs over. And you get like, I got a scab. I got an owie. The whole body's okay. But you know, it's just, but what about this thing right here? See, that's not okay. And our whole lives are like that. Whole lives are like that. Amazing, blessed things going on, not just in our individual lives, but in our world. And then we focus on the negative. We focus on whatever negative thing is passing through our news stream that day, which, you know, is kind of like constant and kind of like not so healthy. To sit around, you know, taking inordinate interest in the negative things that are going on in your world that you don't intend to do much about at all. Except for just, you know, kind of look at it and watch it and tisk and get yourself all stressed out about it. See, what's the point? If you're intending to do something about it, get informed. You know, inform yourself thoroughly. If you intend to do something about it, it'd probably be a good idea to get informed. Instead of just randoming around going, yeah, I'll try and help you here. You see? But if you're not really intending to do anything about it, what's the point of just being informed all the time about all the stuff, you know, the wrong stuff? How about informing yourself about all the cool stuff? Where's that on the news, you know, chain? So somebody's going to come to this sooner or later of like good news, you know, Fox Good News TV or something like that, where it's just one story after another about like how people are nice to each other here and how this person did this awesome thing to somebody else there, and you know, why don't we have news like that? Why are we so interested in the disasters all the time? You see, they're just feeding us what we will consume, right? If we weren't consuming it, they wouldn't be feeding it to us all the time. So where's the good news, you see, in your own life too, you know? Pay attention. And pay attention to the awesome things in other people's lives. That's what he's saying here. it's very interesting, kind of to think about. Could we be content? The greatest contentment, he called. I will enjoy the greatest contentment. In what? The good qualities of others. I could be content right here and now because other people have such good qualities. It's pretty amazing. There's some jujitsu going on. When we think about contentment, we think about I will be content, right? Always. I will get contentment. What about being content with others? Maybe that's a secret there somewhere. This doesn't cost me anything now. Doesn't cost anything to be happy about the good qualities of others. Doesn't cost you a thing, see? It's not that they have good qualities because you don't. It's not a zero-sum game like that. You see? It doesn't cost you anything. And will bring me great happiness later. This is the kind of way to build happiness, is to be thinking about other people, and to be thinking positively about other people. So that will bring me happiness later. Whereas animosities bring enmity and suffering now and great suffering later. This kind of envy, this kind of animosity, this kind of bad-mindedness and so forth isn't doing you any good at all, now or later. One should speak sincere and trustworthy words. Words whose meaning are clear, agreeable, easy on the ear, rooted in compassion and enunciated in gentle and soft tones. So he's kind of, again, back and forth here. This is now mindfulness on speech. What should I say? Sincere and trustworthy words. So honesty, right? Sincerity. Words whose meaning are clear, so not duplicitous, agreeable, easy on the ear, etc. Competent and exuberant. One should always be a self-starter. Svayam kari. Svayam means self. Kari means doer. Self-starter. Don't wait for other people to help. Do what you need to do on your own, without expecting other people also to help. Sometimes people are like this in dharma groups, in sanghas, in spiritual communities. Is that they'll help if other people are helping. I'll help, but first I'd like to see like 6 or 7 other people who are also going to help. And just do it. If there's something to do, just do it. I hear a lot of people are doing that here at the summer retreat. And that's really good practice, to just take responsibility. Okay, well, what needs to be done here? I'll just do it. I don't care if I get a lot of help. In all endeavors, do not pass the buck on to anyone else. The Sanskrit's actually a little more pointed than that. Don't let other people have the opportunity. Don't give other people the opportunity to do cool things that you could be doing. Kind of what it says. In all endeavors, do not give away the opportunity, literally. Do not give away the opportunity to do something beneficial for yourself, which is to help others. The perfections of giving and the rest are presented in a hierarchical order. So those of you who don't know what this is referring to, just briefly, the text as a whole is kind of organized around what they call the 6 perfections. This is another laundry list. It complements the Eightfold Path in a way. Many of them are, comparable. Generosity, ethics, patience, joyful effort. That one's in both lists, right? Meditative concentration, which is also in both lists, and wisdom. So here he's saying, the perfections of giving and the rest are presented in a hierarchical order. So what's the highest? Wisdom. And he's saying, don't do the lower if it's at the expense of doing the higher. One should not reject a higher one for the sake of a lower one. So if you have the opportunity to cultivate wisdom, don't let that go by because you're busy, cultivating generosity. It's wisdom that will get you into enlightenment. It's wisdom that will bring you into salvation. Not giving, actually. Not generosity. Not ethics. Not patience. Not meditation. Wisdom. Wisdom alone. All the rest are just for wisdom. All the rest are to get the momentum going, karmic momentum, to get you to wisdom, to understand what's what. Wisdom means understanding reality. Understanding reality, that's the goal. And all the rest is just to get you there. So this is a very important verse, very important concept. You know, because sometimes people get attached. They get attached to the things that they're good at. You know? So people get good at generosity, they get good at patience, and they think, well, that's the deal then. Since I'm good at it, then maybe that'll take me all the way to pure happiness. And that's not the teaching. The teaching is that it's a means to an end, really. That all of these other actions, you know, moral actions and so forth, are a means to an end. To the wisdom that will bring you to true selflessness, to the true understanding of your nobody self, and therefore your identity with the interdependence of all things. And that's the goal. The goal is to understand that we are not who we think we are, thoroughly, not just a little bit, not just intellectually, but to feel the communion with the oneness and the realization of our place in an interdependent whole, in a network, connected, interbeing. Keeping this in mind, one should continually exert oneself for the sake of others. Para artha. Even that which has been prohibited is allowed for a compassionate person who can discern the benefit. And you know, there's a couple of radical statements like this in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Don't get over attached to the rules and regulations. If it's not beneficial in the situation that you're in, and that requires wisdom, understanding that this is a time where I need to supervene. Is that the word? Supervene? Intervene? No. Over. Supersede. Supersede the usual rules. Supersede the usual guidelines. Then you should do it. That's what he's saying. But you have to have the wisdom, he says. You have to have you can't just do that without some guidance. Wisdom and compassion, especially, he's saying here. Kripalu. A compassionate person. And one way to think about this is to be willing to sacrifice your own virtue for someone else. You see? We get attached to our virtue. We get attached to being good. We get attached to our rules and regulations and our karma and all the rest. And he's saying that that attachment should be overridden by compassion. So here's just one example of this. I use this example often when it comes to lying, you know, that you shouldn't lie. So, is lying a good thing or a bad thing? Is it always a bad thing to lie? No. Well, lots of us would like to believe that. Oh, you know, I have to tell a little lie here because I'm such a compassionate person. Somebody asks you, you know, do you like my shirt? And you think it's butt ugly. Then you might say, no, but I'm a compassionate person. Well, I like it. So that's lying. You know, there's always something nice you can say about the shirt, okay? Like the blue, or, you know, you must have got a good deal on it. You know, something like that. So there's almost never, it's always a lie, okay? A lie is a lie. So is there any time where that rule can be superseded? Okay, here's an example of when. This is a once every 4 or 5 lifetime occurrence where a refugee is being chased by jackbooted Gestapo who are trying to take that refugee. If they catch that refugee, they're going to take them and torture them, probably kill them. And the refugee knocks on your door. Please give me shelter. And you open the door and you give them shelter because you're supposed to be a compassionate person. And then the jackbooted Gestapo come and knock on your door and say, is the refugee inside? Should I lie? What do you think? Yes. Of course you should lie. Kripalu, you're supposed to be a compassionate person, okay? But it's still a lie, okay? And if you think that lies have consequences, if you think that your lie has consequences, it's not like it's not going to have a consequence there. It's a lie. A lie is a lie. So you willingly take the karmic hit and say, yeah, I will suffer for this. Someone else will deceive me in the future, but I am willing to do that for this person. That's the kind of thing he's talking about here. Even that which has been prohibited is allowed for a compassionate person who can discern the benefit. Putting aside portions for the misfortunate, those without protection, those observing religious vows, one should eat very moderately. Back to the body again. Except for the 3 robes, one should renounce everything. So he's talking to monastics here, but you get the idea. You shouldn't have so much stuff. One should not, for some trivial purpose, harm the body that has been put in the service of the true Dharma, for it is only with it that one can speedily fulfill the hopes of living beings. So this is advice, that we should protect our bodies, that we should protect our bodies from harm because they have been put in the service of others. So one example of this, I had a friend who was really into skydiving. And I mean just really into it, not just the occasional jumping out of airplanes, but he got into it like a hobby, like a major obsession. And the whole deal about skydiving is that when you get at that like obsessional level, the whole deal is how low can you go before you jump out of the airplane and not splat on the ground, so that the parachute comes up in enough time to at least break your splat fall. And they go lower and lower and lower, and people die regularly. No one seems to know this, but skydivers are dying regularly at this level of the practice of skydiving. And, just kind of daredevil stuff, just risking your life for the thrill. Of course, it's all about the thrill. It's all about the thrill. So this is advice against that. That's a trivial purpose. That's a trivial purpose. Therefore, one should not give up one's life if the receptacle of compassion, this is how he's talking about the body. Nice phrase, right? The receptacle of compassion is not yet pure. But when it becomes fit for it, one should give it up. One should give up your life for others. If you have the compassion, full, which also requires, selflessness. Understanding that you're not your body, releasing the grasp that we have on the body. But this is for the Christians. There was a man who had that kind of compassion, and he gave up his life. That's what they say, right? And so Shantideva says, if you're at that level, you should too. You should be willing to give up your life for others. Therefore, one should not give up one's life if the receptacle of compassion is not yet pure, but when it becomes fit for it, one should give it up. When done in this matter, it's not just squandered. It becomes redemptive. It becomes helpful to other people. Heedlessly discarding a toothpick. And now for something completely different. Or blowing one's nose is off-putting. And pissing and the like into water or cultivated soil is contemptible. So don't do that kind of stuff with your body. One should not stuff one's face while eating, or smack the lips, or eat with one's mouth wide open. These have been rules of etiquette apparently for thousands of years. In all kinds of cultures. One should not sit with the legs stretched out or across the arms. This is regarded as very disdainful or something like that in many cultures. He should not travel, lie, or sit with someone else's wife, which is probably a good idea unless you know it's okay. This is avoiding problems. Having made inquiries and observations, one should avoid doing anything that's displeasing to people. And this, as I understand it, is a teaching on advice on the importance of fitting in with where you are. And that's a high virtue, actually. It's not a virtuous act to be an oddball on the outside. On the inside, you probably are gonna be a little odd if you start taking some of this advice to heart, because our culture isn't really, geared for it. It's a secularized culture, a radically secularized culture, a radically egotistical culture, a culture based on greed and selfishness. So if you take to heart some of these teachings on the inside, you will definitely be different. And you should embrace that. I often recommend that you go to Picasa. Is that Picasa where they have all the photos online? And search sadhu, S-A-D-H-U, and pick up, and you'll find some really amazing looking people. Sadhus are Indian ascetics, are Indian world renouncers, and they grow their, you haven't seen dreadlocks until you've seen sadhu dreadlocks. They have them like pictured on stairways, and the dreadlocks go all the way down the stairs. Haven't cut their hair for their whole lives or something like that. And they've got ash all smeared on them, oftentimes not wearing any clothes at all. Really gnarly looking guys. They're not going to get a job at McDonald's anytime soon. And, and I just often recommend download the gnarliest looking sadhu you can find and print it out and put it on your bathroom mirror. And say, that's me on the inside. I'm fighting the power. I'm not just a lemming going along with this kind of consumerist society, greed society, violent society. I'm fighting that power. But on the outside, you look normal. See, on the inside. But on the outside, you look normal because you're trying to fit in and help people. How can you help people if you're a freak, you see? You look like a freak. And so it's a very important teaching, actually. Really important teaching. People like to look like freaks so they can be individuals. So they can be more of an individual. Look how odd I look. I'm special. I'm different. It's just another way of feeding the ego. Just another way of feeling separate, feeling special, different, apart from everybody else. So fit in. You can still wear your own clothes and all. I'm not saying that. But to just go to the other extreme, just be odd for odd's sake, is kind of an ego trip, actually. So this is what he's saying: fit in, having made inquiries and observations, having looked around, in your particular milieu. How do people dress? How do people speak? What kind of customs do they have? You try to fit in there, so that you can help. You see, so that you can help others. If you're hanging around cowboys, learn how to talk like cowboys. If you're hanging around bankers, dress like a banker. Don't go in there in your Bermuda shorts and say, I'm awesome, I'm different, I'm spiritual. One should not point to anything with one's finger. This is even in today in India, this is bad manners. To say, well, where's the bank? It's there. You say it's there. In fact, you say, just there. Just there only, which means that you'll never find it. One should not yell and wave one's arms around when there is little urgency. Rather, you should do something like snap the fingers in order to maintain decorum. Something needs to be done. When one lies down, it should be in the position of the Lord took in his final nirvana. This is on the right side. This is the kind of standard Buddhist instruction. Lying down on the right side. I forget where your head's supposed to face. North? I don't know. North? Yeah. And one should quickly arise fully conscious in accordance with one's predetermined plan. In other words, you should have a plan for the day. You know, as you're going to bed at night, you have a plan for the next day. What am I going to do with my life tomorrow? But I actually disagree with him. One should not quickly arise. One should loll around in bed for a while. You know, and think about how awesome your life is and how it won't last. In whatever situation one finds oneself in, either alone or in relation to another, one should make efforts to apply the training relevant to that situation. You know, fit into where you are. And what can I use here of my training, of my spiritual training, to help people in this situation? They used to call that situational ethics, I think, in Christian theology, situational ethics. One way of talking about it. There is nothing that children of conquerors, he's talking about bodhisattvas, people who have this wish, this mindset of trying to awakening. There is nothing that children of the conquerors should not learn. And one way to not learn is to get fundamentalist about your religion. And just close it all down and say, I know what's right, I know what's wrong, our way is right, your way is wrong, and never learn anything. So this is among the many problems, and you don't have to be like a Muslim terrorist or, wacky Christian snake handler to be a fundamentalist. There's plenty of liberal fundamentalists too, of just like closing down the idea that there's anything to learn from anybody else. So I know my yoga path, I know my Buddhism, I know my whatever it is, and I'm not interested in like learning about whatever you've got to offer over there. There is nothing that children of the conquerors should not learn. For a virtuous person who carries himself like this, there is nothing which is without merit. This is awesome here. He's talking here also about punya as opposed to karma. Punya is merit. Karma is karma. Karma wears out. Punya doesn't. And the difference is in the relative selflessness of the person who's created it. Karma is action that's created by somebody, by the somebody self, the individual self. The me, say my name to myself. I say, I do, I think something, and that has a reaction. That will have a reaction in the future. Merit is by definition selfless. It is not done for you. It is not done for your benefit, for your advantage, and so forth. It's done for others, or for the world as a whole. So, somebody who has that bodhi, awakening in their minds, that awakening idea, they start to re-identify themselves. They realize that they're not who they used to think they are, that they're not a somebody really at all, that they are nobody and everybody. And then actions, then he says, and with that kind of re-understanding of the self, then all action becomes meritorious. Going to the bathroom becomes meritorious. Picking your nose, playing soccer, all becomes meritorious. Because you isn't you anymore. You see, not an individual, but fully identified with the whole, with the one, and with the everything, with the everybody, with nobody and with everybody. One should do nothing other than what is directly or indirectly beneficial for other beings, and one should direct everything towards awakening for the sake of those beings. So this is what they call in Sanskrit parinama. This means that everything that you do should be transferred to the benefit of others. Transfer of merit, they call it. Transfer of merit. So you go for a 6-day retreat, the summer retreat, and you say, okay, whatever benefit I've accumulated over these 6 days of listening to teachings, of meditating, of doing my yoga, et cetera, I give that away. Totally give that away. May that help other people. May that be of use to other people. And again, this is selfless, right? So letting go of the somebody self. What am I going to get out of the deal? What am I learning? Am I becoming? Am I growing? See, we have new agey spiritual ways of talking about that too, right? Am I growing? Am I becoming, more spiritual and stuff like that? So that's not a spiritual enterprise to become more spiritual. It's to let it go. It's not about you. A spiritual enterprise, by definition, is not about you. Otherwise, it's not spiritual. Otherwise, it's just another way of thinking about yourself. And so this is this practice of transfer of merit. They become like merit machines. Because if you say, okay, any goodness that I've accumulated, I give it away, what happens? Karmically, what must happen? It must come back. What you let go must come back. What you give you must receive. And then as soon as you receive it, what? You give it away. Boom, boom, like that. See? And then you become a real force of good in the world. Then you become a real force of good in the world. And that's why they also say that with any kind of bodhicitta, with any real bodhicitta, that you're on your way very, very quickly to the end. The snowball is really rolling at that point. For this reason, you see. For this reason. Everything just becomes merit-making. Everything just becomes a positive action. Because it's not about you. Because it's not about your benefit. It's always for someone else. Having discerned what to give up and what to take up in one's training, one should behave so as to protect the minds of ordinary people. Have some compassion for other people. And behave in a way that is going to be helpful to them. So, again, there's a bit of a temptation to lord it over other people. Say, well, I'm a yogi, or I'm a meditator, or I'm so generous, or something like that. And then other people just get envious. You see, you're just provoking envy in other people. Or resentment. Oh, you big goody two-shoes, or something like that. Protect their minds. Protect the effect. Think about the effect that you're having on other people. Is it helpful for them? Is it helpful for you to say what an awesome meditator you are? You see? Or is it just about you again? Feeling superior, what about them? To summarize, this is the defining feature of full awareness. So now we come to the end of the chapter. Samprajanya, right? Full awareness. Paying attention every moment to the state of one's body and mind, and also to the state of other people's minds, you could add, right? Paying attention to your own mind. What are your intentions here? See, what are you doing with your body? What are you going on in your mind? What are your intentions vis-a-vis other people and so forth? And what kind of effect are you having on the world around you? Is it a positive effect or is it a negative effect? And try to maximize the positive and avoid the negative. So this is about paying attention, right? Mindfulness, full awareness. So I thought we'd end pretty much the chapter here and the class, the course, with a bit of reflection on when you get good at this. When you get good at being mindfully self-conscious, watching yourself, watching your mind, watching your body, watching your actions, thinking about, how am I affecting others and so forth. And the goal isn't to get really, really good at being mindfully self-conscious. It's to learn how to be mindfully unself-conscious. And both of those are important. Both of those words are important. So we talked a little bit at the earlier part of the class about unself-consciousness. Singing and dancing and, or watching TV, or going and putting on your 3D glasses at the latest, blockbuster, movie, or the summer movie. There is mindless unself-consciousness and mindful unself-consciousness and mindful self-consciousness. Mindful self-consciousness is training to be mindfully unself-conscious in the right way. So let's start with mindful self-consciousness we've been talking about for four sessions, really, right? In the evening here. Mindless unself-consciousness we're all quite aware of. This is just spacing out, trying to get some relief from our suffering by avoiding life, by just trying to get some kind of escape. And our society is full of them. We have more possibilities than ever before on how to be mindlessly unself-conscious and just let somebody else entertain us. Some other images, some broadcast, some website, some YouTube, download, some podcast, some, whatever. Endless possibilities of being mindlessly unself-conscious. So then there is mindful unself-consciousness. And mindful unself-consciousness is what I was talking about earlier. This is when we actually are happy. We are happiest when we're in the zone. They call it now flow. When you're in the flow. When you're doing something that you really like to do and that you're skilled at doing, that you don't have to think about doing. You just do it. So this is the appeal of hobbies, basically, is that you get really, really good at rollerblading, for example. And in order to get really good at rollerblading, you have to be mindfully self-conscious at first, right? You have to think about like how to rollerblade, how do I move when I'm rollerblading? How do I stop when I'm rollerblading is crucial. I never learned that. Self-consciously, right? You learn a skill self-consciously and mindfully. But the goal is to be mindfully unself-conscious and just enjoy the damn roller skating, right? When you learn it really well, you don't have to think about how to roller skate, how to do it, the technique. You just do it. And that's when we get in the flow. See, that's when we can get into the flow of things. So we do this with our hobbies. We sometimes do this with our work. This is one of the reasons why people are working 12, 15 hours a day, is that they can become mindfully unself-conscious in their job. Hopefully it's a challenge. It would have to be a kind of a challenging job and a job that you more or less enjoy doing. And then you get the relief, you see. You get the relief from what? Mindfully unself-conscious. You get the relief from self-conscious. You get the relief from being you. So, and that's attractive. And there's, but there's better ways and worse ways to be mindfully unself-conscious. It kind of depends on what you're doing mindfully and unself-consciously. If you're rollerblading, well, that'll be fun and all. If you're working 12-hour days and, mindfully unself-conscious about it, well, that'll be a rewarding job that you'll lose when at the age of 70 and when they tell you to go home. Best case scenario. Maybe before that, when they fire you, you see. So what would be a good thing to learn how to do mindfully and unself-consciously that wouldn't just be temporary or a hobby or something that that won't really pay off in the long run? And that's a spiritual life. That's learning how to live a spiritual life. Mindfully, but unself-consciously. Mindfully means you're paying attention, okay? It's like driving a car. When you're driving a car, if you're an experienced driver, you're not thinking about how to drive the car. Or driving a motorcycle. If you're driving a motorcycle and you're thinking about driving a motorcycle, you don't know how to drive a motorcycle very well, you see? So that's mindful, of course, because if you're not mindful, you're going to go right off the cliff. You're going to crash into somebody else's car. So you got to be mindful, but you're not self-conscious about it. Not thinking about it, just doing, you see? So So there are examples of this in our daily life, and this is when we're happy. This is when when we're in the flow, is when we feel fulfilled, when we are living instead of thinking about living. So then the next question is, well, how can I live mindfully, unself-consciously, and right? Good, see, beneficial to others. And that's the spiritual goal. That's the spiritual life. That's what it's meant to do. To get there, we have to be mindfully self-conscious. We have to train ourselves. We have to train ourselves to react properly, to retrain our responses. When the anger comes up, instead of just letting it go, to retrain our responses to what's happening now. Right? To learn how to play the cards well. To learn how to accept the hand and then learn how to play the cards well. The accepting of the hand is the same. The learning how to play the cards takes time. Always got to accept the hand, because that's the way it is. It's like this now. But the training, the development, the self-improvement is learning how to play the cards well. And the goal is to play the cards well automatically. Without thought, without premeditation, without self-consciousness. And that's freedom. That's the goal. That's nirvana. That's moksha, liberation. You fully accept the hand, and you automatically, spontaneously, without forethought, without thinking, because you're so thoroughly rewired to just play them perfectly, all the time. Every hand, every situation, throughout life. So we're on our way to that. We're on our way to become expert card players. Sharks, card sharks. Without thinking, spontaneous, you see? And then you're in the flow all the time. Then it's just one big kirtan. Yeah, I mean, maybe not ecstatic all the time, but happy, perfect, content. No regrets, no thinking, too much thinking. Stop making sense, like the talking head said. Stop making sense and just play. And then you are just playing, you see. Then there is no work in life. Life isn't a job. Spiritual life or any other kind of life is just all lila. Just play. Spontaneous, without attention to fruits, what I'm going to get out of it. Pure play. So you can see what it would be like to live a life like this by watching small children play at the playground. They're working hard, right? And they're not sitting around going, I wish the slide were different. They come to a playground and they go, this is the slide at the playground. They don't, right? They don't go, mommy, this slide sucks, give me another slide. They take the cards. And then they play. They climb the slide up, they climb up the slide, they go down the slide. They climb up the slide, they go down the slide. Right? It's virya, lots of effort, lots of joyful effort, but unself-conscious, right? Mindful. They're not falling off the slide, hopefully every time. And without a purpose. You see? There's no purpose. It's not for something else. I'm doing it so I can get something else out of it. See, what's the purpose of sliding is not to get to the bottom of the slide as quickly as possible. The purpose of sliding, the purpose of the slide is sliding, not to having slid. Right? No, this is you can see it. You can see how we should be living. The spiritual traditions often tell us to be like little children. To be like, this is exactly what they mean. When Jesus said that, am I something wrong? To be like little children means to be mindfully unself-conscious like this. And good. Simple. Without elaboration, without am I being good, but to be automatically. spontaneously good. And there's no purpose, not for any other reason than it is here to do. Life is the slide, so slide, see? Teeter-totter, why are you teetering and tottering, little child? If you go and ask little kids, like, why are they doing? What's the purpose of your teeter and totter? What is that purpose of the swinging back and forth, you see? There is no purpose. It's its own purpose, you could say. It's for itself, not for something else. And life should be led like that, because it's there to live.